All right. Let's talk about proportions. A proportion is a comparison of two equivalent ratios. All right, now, basically what a proportion is going to look like is a proportion will look like equivalent fractions. Okay, that's what they're basically going to look like. For example, we've really already had proportions and other things that we've done when we talked about equivalent fractions, but now it's going to be a little bit different. For example, the 1/2 and 4/8, those are equal to each other, okay? What we've had in the past is we've said, okay, take 4/8 and reduce it. Okay, and so we divide by 2/2. Actually, you need to divide by 4/4. Okay, you divide by 4/4, you're equal 1/2, and those are your two equivalent fractions. Okay, that's very similar to what they're going to do today. Okay, they're going to give you two fractions. The difference is this: your two fractions are going to look like something like this. Okay, and so what they've done is they've left out one of the parts of the fractions. Okay, some of them are going to be very easy, like this one here, fairly simplistic. Okay, others are going to be harder, quite a bit harder. But what we want to learn is this. We want to learn how to solve these, and we're going to solve these particular proportions by cross-multiplying. Okay, so in other words, I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply those two terms together, and I'm going to multiply those two together. So, when I multiply 9 times n, I get 9n, okay, because I don't know what n is. When I multiply 2 times 36, I get 72. Okay, so basically the step in here, let me go ahead and write it down. Okay, that's where we're coming up with that step I just wrote. Okay, now, the rule is this, and this we've talked somewhat about this very briefly when we talked about equivalent fractions, when we talked about which fraction is greater than the other fraction. Somebody in the class, can't remember who it was, but somebody in the class said, well, can't you just multiply straight across? You can multiply to figure out which fraction is larger than the other fraction. You can do the same thing. You can multiply those number times themselves. Now, if a proportion is truly equal, then when you cross-multiply, you will end up with the same number. Okay? Now, please understand, I'm not saying cross-canceling. Okay? We had in the past where you had, 9/2 times 36/3, and we cross-canceled. Okay? This is not cross-canceling. This is not a multiplication problem. This is a proportion problem. Okay? Now, we just solved that equation. We solve that equation by dividing by 9 to both sides. The reason we divide by 9 is because we're multiplying by 9. We got to get the variable by itself. Remember, that's what it means to solve, is to get the variable by itself on one side of the expression or the other. Okay, so when you divide 9 into 72, that gives me 8. And so what it means is this: 9 over 2 is equal to 36 over 8. Okay, well, if that is true, then I should be able to multiply those two things together and get the same number. Well, what is 2 times 36? Okay, so 2 times 36 is 72, and then 9 times 8 is what? 72. So sure enough, it checks. It is correct. Okay, so the answer to the problem is n equal 8. Okay, n equal 8 is the answer to that proportion. That's what's missing. Nicole? I divided 9 into 72. 9 goes into 72 8 times. Because I am asking myself, 9 times what equals 72? Because we got to figure out what n is. And so 9 times, the only thing you can multiply 9 by to get 72 is 8. Okay, let me do another one. Let's see, a over 24, looks more like a 9. A over 24 is equal to 7 over 8. Okay, so now we're going to cross multiply. We got to figure out what A is, and we're going to cross multiply. So that's 8 times A is equal to 7 times 24. Okay, well, 7 times 24 is equal to 168. Okay, now I just solve. I solve by dividing by 8 because the 8 is what I'm doing to A. I am multiplying A by 8. So therefore, I must divide by 8 to both sides to solve it. So I divide by 8. This 8 over 8 cancels out, leaving me with A. I divide 8 into 168, and that gives me 21. Because you get 2 in there, goes 16 times, be 0, bring down your 8. 8 into 8 goes 1 time. Okay, now, let's say they do this. 6.8 over Z equals 2 over 5. So they've given us a decimal. Doesn't change anything. Same process. You still cross multiply, solve the equation, all the things that we've talked about up to this point. Okay, so if we cross multiply then, that's going to give me 2 times Z is equal to 6.8 times 5. That's 2Z equal 34. Okay, now we divide by 2 to both sides. So I'm going to divide 2 into 34, and that gives me Z, because it's canceled out. Z is equal to 17. Okay, so I want you to try this one on your own. A over 4 is equal to 3.5 over 2. Blaney, what'd you get? No. Close. Derek? A equals 7. That is correct. So, cross multiply. That gives me 2 times A equal 4 times 3.5. So that's 2A equal 14. Okay? So divide by 2, divide by 2. That 2 cancels. Leave me at A is equal to 2 into 14. Goes 7 times. Okay, well, what if they give us multiple decimals in the problem? Still doesn't change. 3.6 over 3 equals y over 14.4. Okay? So, cross multiply. That gives me 3 times y is equal to 3.6 times 14.4. Okay, well, 3.6 times 14.4, be 4, carry your 2. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 2 would be 6, carry my 2. 8, 64, bring down a 0. 2, 13, carry my 1. 4, make sure that's right, I went through it pretty quick. Yeah. 4, 8, 11, so 51.84. So 3y is equal to 51.84. Now we got to solve it. Solve by dividing by 3 to both sides. Those 3's cancel out, leaving me with y is equal to 3 into 51.84. That goes 1 time, be 3, remainder 2. Bring down my 1. That would be 7 times, be 21, remainder 0. Bring up my decimal, bring down my 8. 3 into 8 goes 2 times, be 6, remainder 2. Bring down my 4. 3 into 24, 8 times, 24, remainder 0. So y is equal to 17.28. Okay? Now, question is how do we use this? Okay? Well, probably in everyday life, proportions are used more than just about any type of math. Okay? Let me give you one example of where they're used that I know of I know of more examples than just one, but in the insurance industry. Okay? Insurance companies use it to help decide how much insurance is going to cost you. Okay? Let me give you an example of how that is. Let's take, for example, a person smokes cigarettes. Okay? Not condoning that. Not saying you should. Just using it as an example. Okay? A person smokes cigarettes. Okay? In insurance, how we relate that back to insurance is this way. Insurance companies are basically going to do this. They're going to go, okay, this many people smoke, and this many people out of the people that smoke get cancer. Okay? It's just one of those things. It's been proven that people that obviously, and so what they do is this. They take 1,000 people that smoke, and that's one of the questions on us, like when you fill out insurance company papers for insurance, that's one of the questions they ask you. Now, you can obviously lie, okay, but they're going to be able to tell it. If something was to happen to you health-wise, doctors can tell when you smoke. Okay, now if you just smoke like one cigarette in your whole life, obviously that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody that continually smokes. Okay, it does stuff to the lungs. Your lungs are discolored. It just whole thing. All right, now what they're going to do is they're going to take 1,000 people, and they say, okay, 100 out of the 1,000 got lung cancer or died a premature death. Okay? Then they're going to come over here and say, okay, these 1,000 people that didn't smoke. Okay, out of these 1,000 people, only 2 people got lung cancer or died prematurely. Okay? And so what they're going to do is they're going to look at the numbers. They're going to say, okay, on the one hand, I have 100 over 1,000. Okay, 100 over 1,000 is basically means 1 over 10. There's a proportion. Okay, they're going to say that 1 out of every 10 people that smoke, we're going to have to deal with medical costs because they either have some kind of complications with their health, they die prematurely, they have cancer, things of that nature. Then they get the other proportion where it's 2 over 1,000, which is basically 1 over 500. So over here they say 1 out of over 500 people, if they don't smoke, get lung cancer. So obviously, which one would you want to insure? The 1 out of 10? So this could lead to $100,000s of dollars of medical bills, or the 1 out of 500. 1 out of 500. So you would assume that this person pays a lot less for insurance than this person does. Okay? They do the same thing with car insurance. If you live, for example, one of the questions they'll ask you is, which county do you live in? Do you live in Tarrant County, Dallas County, Denton County, Timbuktu County? Okay? Well, the reason they ask that is because of this. If you live, for example, I was listening the other day and they said in Wyoming, okay, the state of Wyoming, if you take the people in Dallas and Fort Worth and Tarrant and Dallas County, that's the total number of people that live in the whole state of Wyoming. Okay? So it's obviously spread out. Probably don't have these issues, where it's a parking lot instead of a highway. Okay, where you can go out there, and a lot of days you could walk faster down that road and get to where you're going than you could drive. Okay, so then who is less likely to have wrecks? People that have only 4 million people in the whole state, or people that have 4 million people in 2 counties? Well, obviously the people that have more people. That's why people that live in Dallas County pay more for car insurance than the people who live in Tarrant County, because there's more people in Dallas County. They're also they're not very smart over there because they live in Dallas. That's the whole reason. Okay, people in Fort Worth are a lot smarter, drive a lot better. Okay, just joking. I don't know that, but we do know that the accidents are more frequent in Dallas than they are in Fort Worth. So a person that's driving into Dallas County every day, their insurance is going to be a little bit higher because they're more likely the proportion or the ratio says that they're more likely to have a wreck than if you live in Tarrant County and just drive into Tarrant County.